Hello class, today I wanted to talk about a scandal that truly rocked the nation. A man with a mustache and a cover band cheated on his girlfriend. Strange but true. Folks, it has been over 2 years since Scandoval. And you know it was a dark and chaotic time in pop culture because we were dependent on people like Nick Viall and Jojo Siwa for frontline coverage of this situation. Today, I wanted to take a look back at the cheating scandal to rule all cheating scandals. Now, I can already hear someone in the comments typing furiously, "Oh my god, this was 2 years ago, you're obsessed, move on." Well, I'll have you know that I just started watching the show in January, and the show is 11 seasons long, so I've only been obsessed with this scandal for a few weeks. And that really shows you I'm a sheep, the slowest sheep around. Listen, if something is popular and everyone tells me that I'll like it, I just will not engage with it until the discourse is long overplayed and I am the only one left talking about it. Took me 2 years to listen to Hamilton, for God's sake. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Vanderpump Rules follows the waitstaff at one of Lisa Vanderpump's restaurants in West Hollywood. They're hot, they've got statement necklaces on, and throughout the decade of filming, they have all displayed just some absolutely deplorable behavior. Some of their crimes are fun, like Sheena's blue-colored contact lenses. Others, like literally anything to do with DJ James Kennedy, is not a joke, just dark and twisted. Lisa Vanderpump was an original Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. Her and her husband Ken own over 30 restaurants, and you haven't seen the true meaning of overstimulating until you've gone to one of them. Imagine for me for a second. You've just absolutely slammed some goat cheese balls down your gullet. You're surrounded by furniture which is intentionally chipped, and then just out of the shadows comes Jax Taylor, here to give you your third pumptini. On an incredible episode of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it is revealed that one of Lisa's waitresses, Sheena, had an affair with a married man, and his wife just so happens to be one of Lisa's friends, and she's serving her on national television now. From there, we seamlessly transition to a show filled with debauchery, alcohol, and the absolute central drama at any point of Vanderpump Rules was always cheating. The men, especially on this franchise, live, laugh, love non-ethical monogamy. Jax in season 1 cheats on Stassi and, when caught, convinces her entire friend group that she's a crazy liar, only to admit at the end of the season that it was actually true the entire time. Actually, Jax just cheats on every girlfriend he has on his show, and now his separation is being depicted on The Valley, the spin-off show. Even Katie Maloney was once famously accused of motorboating a man's D, which I'll just give you a second to process that visual. But there was one scandal that was simultaneously the most insane piece of drama to ever happen on the show, but also the show's bitter demise, and that is Scandoval. Okay, so I want to tell you all about Scandoval, but I'm changing up the format a little bit. Since there's just so much timeline to go through, I thought I would give you all a presentation, because this is a very serious educational lecture for reality TV history. We're reheating a little bit of Olivia Lopez nachos today, and I think it's going to be an excellent time, so join me. Oh, didn't see you guys there. How long have you been there? As you can see, I've used nothing but the most advanced technology to give this presentation to y'all. Be honest. What do we think? And if you don't like it, don't be honest. Y'all might not know it yet, but there's actually a lot of hidden and important lore just on this first slide. I spared no expense. It was free, but I spared no expense. Like I've said, I've never done this before, but for this story in particular, there are so many characters and so many names you need to keep straight, as well as such a lengthy timeline with just so many random innocuous facts that do not seem important but are in fact greatly important to me. It just cannot be displayed in any other way, so I hope y'all are along for the ride. I should also say I am far from the first person to put any sort of timeline together for this affair, and there were a bunch that I found helpful online putting this together, but one timeline in particular was posted by Denise Michael on Reddit, and I'll actually link their version of the timeline down below. I am nothing without the investigative journalists who came before me. First of all, there's Sandoval. I included his drag name Visa Vanderhump because I felt like y'all might also want to know this information. I put this as a bullet point for a reason. If there is just one easy way to sum up Tom Sandoval in one sentence, it is that he just is Zoolander if he got his own reality show in 2012. When we first meet Tom Sandoval on the show, he is, like pretty much everyone on the cast, a wannabe actor and musician. At that point, his biggest claim to fame was actually in the erotica genre, and one of his most iconic roles, of course, is when he played a character named Vinny in The Pit and the Pendulum. It is cinema, it is high art, and the fact that it never gets referenced on the show, I do think is a crime. I also think it's important to establish how Tom was viewed before this whole scandal happened. The core original cast of Vanderpump Rules was Sheena, Stassi, Kristen, Katie, Jax, Sandoval. Tom Schwartz was also there, but he was not a full-time cast member until, I think, season 2. But he was throwing drinks at his girlfriend in season 1, for sure. The thing is, I think because of people like Jax, and later when James Kennedy gets introduced, those guys were villains, like capital V villains on the show. I don't just say that in the sense that they obviously did some devious things while on this reality show. Part of being the villain also in a way makes you like the star of the show. As Jax Taylor famously declared, Tom Sandoval is not the #1 guy in this group.
Dude, stop acting like you're the #1 guy in this group, man. I'm the #1 guy in this group.
Are you kidding me, Jax?
Does that mean that Jax Taylor is a good person? No, obviously not. But in terms of just like grabbing sheer attention, Tom Sandoval very much felt like a side character to me. The show really didn't emphasize like what Tom Sandoval was doing. They just emphasized what a quirky little himbo he is. He wears guy liner. He can't put an IKEA table together. And because he is sort of framed as this goofy side character, a lot of his also devious behavior really goes unnoticed if you're not paying attention to just how often he is also yelling at the women in this group, cheating on his partners, getting into fights. He was doing it all, but it was just eclipsed by so many other big players on the show. Also, anytime I've tried to include Bravo clips on my Patreon, they've gotten immediately blocked, so I'm not sure how many I'm actually going to get to show you in this video. But there is this one clip of Tom Sandoval playing the trumpet that I do think is incredible, and I think you should watch it.
Every time I pull out my trumpet, it's an expression of my feelings. Just lose myself in the music. It's awesome.
Like, you can't make it up. Scripted content can just never keep up with reality TV in that way, you know? Long before Ariana comes on the show, and actually long before the show, Tom was in a relationship with Kristen Doty, who I am currently blocking a quote from her, but just so you know, she claims to be the best girlfriend in the entire world. I kind of get the sense that in the early years of the show, people really could not stand Kristen because she's so, she's crazy. But nowadays, it feels like there's like a postmodern appreciation for her crazy behavior, as well as an understanding that perhaps some people did push her to be a little crazy at times. But don't get me wrong, she is unhinged. She willingly participates in a feral behavior across the show and off the show, which actually eventually got her fired. A lot of people kind of ignore that in her redemption arc, you could say. Kristen is the kind of girly who, when drunk, might throw their drink at you if you cross her, but the next day she'll post a photo from that night and the caption will be like, "Choose love," with a butterfly emoji or something like that. And you know what? Maybe you had it coming. Kristen is not afraid to say something, to get what she wants, to do whatever. Her and Tom as a couple are such an odd pairing because also on top of being a Zoolander, Tom kind of has like a emo Hot Topic vibe about him that I don't think Kristen has at all. I feel like Kristen was really into Ray Dunn in 2014. On top of that, they are just so toxic with one another. They'll start passive-aggressive fights in front of everybody else at the dinner table. They break up and get back together constantly. All of her friends want them to break up, but they just will not. In between season 1 and season 2 of Vanderpump Rules, Tom Sandoval tells this random girl in Vegas that him and Kristen are broken up, which they are not. They hook up. Somehow Kristen finds out about it, and that becomes a big plot point on season 2. I'm realizing now that I accidentally wrote Tom cheats on Katie with the girl from Vegas. Tom Schwartz does cheat on Katie Maloney with the girl from Vegas, but that is a different storyline entirely. It's actually really sad at the beginning of season 2 because Tom is immediately like, "Oh, I said I'm sorry." what's a little cheating among long-term partners? And Kristen is like, well, you've kind of broken my trust, and I may have done a bunch of things to you, Tom, but I never cheated on you. And she starts crying, and you really feel for her. It does get less impactful when you realize that she was also cheating on Tom at this point, but we don't know that yet. We don't know that. All we really know is that this is a relationship that is begging to be done, but neither of them are really ready to face that. All right, next, of course, we have our ultimate galaxy legging wearing, French braid across her forehead having, millennial Hogwarts lover girly Ariana Madix. One thing you need to know about Ariana Madix is that she takes sketch comedy very seriously. And another thing you should know is that she is best friends with Sheena Shea, who is another character we'll introduce. I do have to say, though, I don't think Sheena Shea is a real friend to Ariana, because no friend of mine would let this French braid look be the first look she wears as like a main cast member on the show. Ariana, before she moved to Los Angeles, was actually working with College Humor, and you can definitely tell she has that aura about her. Late College Humor, early BuzzFeed. She will eat leggings and wear pizza. What? Pizza is bae. Now, once Ariana moves out to LA, she works at Villa Blanca, one of Lisa's other restaurants out in LA that's actually featured a lot on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. You can actually see, literally for like a split second, you can see a shot where she is working at the bar, because they're both bartenders at Villa Blanca with Tom Sandoval. Kristen is a little worried about this because they seem like they might be a little bit more than friends. But don't worry, there's nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Why would you even think that, Kristen? When Ariana hears that Kristen is a little jealous because Ariana is about to move to SUR and work with Tom at SUR, Ariana says, I'm smarter than you. I'm prettier than you. Get the f over it and move on with your life.
Sorry, bitch. I'm smarter than you. I'm cooler than you. I'm prettier than you. Get the f over it and move on with your life. Well said.
So I started watching the show, of course, long after Scandoval had happened. And I had also watched Ariana as a host on Love Island by this point. And I remember when you first meet Ariana, I'm like, wait, this is the person that everybody likes so much?
Because I think she's bipolar, and I think she's a crazy person, and I think she needs medication.
Let's be so serious at this point. Her and Tom definitely have a thing. It's a really overplayed word, but she really does give pick-me energy, peak 2012, 2013 pick-me energy at that. So when Kristen tearfully begs Ariana to just tell her if something ever physically happened between her and Tom, Ariana's like, no, you dumb slut. Obviously not. Obviously that never happened. Except, well, perhaps it did happen. This is around the time that Tom Sandoval starts accusing Kristen of having BPD and suggesting that she go to therapy. Maybe he's saying that in a nicer way off camera. On camera, he's saying it in like the most stigmatizing, insulting way possible. And again, knowing that she's so upset because she thinks something happened between Ariana and Tom, and she thinks they're lying to her. Knowing that she's absolutely right, it is painful to watch. Eventually, Tom breaks down and admits, not to Kristen, by the way, he admits this to Stassi, that 3 years ago, me and Ariana made out at the f***ing Golden Nugget. Yes, that happened. And she goes, that's like an all-time low. And Tom Sandoval, with full sincerity, goes, are you kidding me? I love that place. It is like a scene straight out of The Office. It is incredible. Again, I can't recommend the show enough. So then Kristen goes to confront Ariana about this and is like, Ariana, you've been saying this whole time that nothing physical happened between you and Tom. I just found out that y'all made out at the fucking Golden Nugget. And Ariana's like, well, I'm not going to tell on my friend. He told me not to tell you. So I'm just like helping my friend. And what's so wrong with that, crazy Kristen? Just when you're starting to really feel bad for Kristen at this point, which I do, it is revealed that Kristen also cheated on Tom and Kristen's couch while Tom was asleep in their bedroom with Tom Sandoval's best friend, Jax Taylor, and Kristen's best friend, Stassi's ex-boyfriend, who at this point, it doesn't really matter, but Stassi and Jax are sort of trying to get back together, and Kristen is being like, oh my gosh, yeah, you two should totally get back together. Meanwhile, she's like secretly sleeping with Jax at that same time, which also leads to this, it shouldn't be iconic because physical violence is not okay. This iconic slap heard around the world between Stassi and Kristen. It's also revealed, but not really in specifics, that Kristen cheated on Tom with another person at a different point. Tom and Ariana's thing is just completely overshadowed by what Kristen did with Jax, because this group of people operates on, I think, a very unique understanding of cheating, because I think they all cheat on each other. Emotional cheating, I don't think really exists in this world, because here's the thing, like when Ariana's dad passed away, Tom immediately left Kristen's side to go be with Ariana. They would go shopping together. They would go out for drinks together and not invite Kristen. They would text all the time, and Tom would hide those text messages from Kristen or lie about those text messages. They were clearly at a minimum having an emotional affair, but they insist to this day that they only ever made out at the Golden Nugget. Because they only made out, that is only seen as like a level 1 cheating. At the season 2 reunion, Tom and Ariana hard launch. Andy Cohen, being, the messy diva that he is like, well, Ariana, are you worried that Tom is going to cheat on you the way he did with Kristen? And she just flat out, no hesitation, no. I know our relationship, it would never, ever happen.
I've been friends with him for 3 years. I know him really well. It's not a thing for me.
And Kristen is clearly not over her relationship with Tom, because she is fully in tears watching this. But no one feels bad for Kristen. 1, because they're not over the Jax thing. But 2, because Kristen, at this point on the reunion, is dating Tom Sandoval's 21-year-old friend, who is a DJ.
I have higher standards than that. I have morals.
I think what she's saying is you just should have directed your anger towards...
And his name is James Kennedy. James Kennedy is about to come on the show. Y'all don't know who James Kennedy is, but he is my mortal enemy. Oh, I also needed to include, my fiance cannot stand James Kennedy. I'm telling you, anytime I would have this show on, he wouldn't watch a full episode with me, but he would just walk past and go, I hate that guy. Anytime James Kennedy was on screen. There's a big age gap between Tom and Kristen, who are in their early 30s at this point, and James Kennedy, who later admits was just sleeping with Kristen to get on the show. He is a British Nepo baby who his family is very close friends with Lisa Vanderpump, which means his crimes throughout the show basically go unnoticed, uncared about, because that's Lisa's special little boy. Also, in the scope of this silly little presentation, I don't know if I've said it already, but James Kennedy has been accused by Kristen and by his later girlfriend of being a domestic abuser. At a minimum, we see him throughout the show, particularly when he is relapsing with his alcohol issues, screaming and yelling at his partners, calling them a whore, a slut, like horrific things on camera. Another thing we see is that at one point he spits on Kristen's door. There's also a point on the show where James is like blackout drunk and he is screaming at Kristen, who is trying to get away from him at this point. And Kristen claims that at that point, James shoved her into a bush, but that was edited out of the show. And that in response to that, which was on the show, Kristen sort of backhanded James just to get him away from her. But I am telling you, the idea that James Kennedy was a seriously abusive person was not really floated around outside of like Reddit threads until this past year when he was arrested for domestic violence. This won't surprise you, but in my opinion, James Kennedy should have never been on the show, should have been kicked off the show. He was clearly not a safe person to be around. And I don't even think the show was a safe place for him either, given just how much alcohol was around him by nature of filming the show all the time. But a lot of that gets ignored because James Kennedy has delivered some iconic one-liners of the show. I have this clip here where even the people who are actively beefing with him in this clip are laughing at him just crawling on all fours. He's ridiculous. Like it genuinely pisses me off how much I've laughed at some of the things he said over the years, but he is an abhorrent person, and unfortunately he will be a fairly relevant person to the story. But now that Tom and Ariana are an official couple, they are the strongest couple on the show. I, in my opinion, think part of it was they kept a lot of their arguments and issues in their relationship off screen, but compared to every other couple who was just constantly calling each other names, fighting with each other, throwing drinks at each other. On the show, they were just obscenely lovey-dovey and always on the same page. But even at the beginning, there's an issue. Kristen Doute hears a rumor that Tom may have cheated on Ariana right when they first started dating with a girl in Miami. Jax Taylor also thinks that that happened. But Jax Taylor is a pathological liar, so no one takes Jax's witnessing of this seriously. Kristen, bless her heart, flies this woman from Miami out to Los Angeles to confront Tom Sandoval at his place of work about how they had sex in Miami. Now, was this perhaps the most mature, even safe thing for Kristen to do? No. And when the restaurant manager tries to kick Kristen and this Miami girl out of the restaurant, Kristen is just popping off at every one of these people who are supposed to be her coworkers and her boss. Again, it's like this object permanence thing where because Kristen is acting so loud and honestly unhinged, even if she was right, you kind of forget that Miami girl happened and someone did accuse Tom of cheating on Ariana. Ariana, by the way, is not fazed by this at all. They are still the strongest couple. However, as we start to progress through the seasons a little bit, we start to see some of the cracks in their relationships. For example, when Ariana turns 30, which is this huge milestone birthday, it's also the first year since her dad passed away, so she's having a lot of emotions about this. She begs Tom to stay with her on her birthday and on the anniversary of her dad's death because she just feels so emotional, and Tom's her partner. She wants him to be there to support her. He says, Ariana, I'm always going to be there for you, babe. I am going to go to Las Vegas, though, because they said we could have bulldozers and we could crush with bulldozers.
I'm always going to be here. But apparently he told me that we're going to a construction yard and we're taking bulldozers and crushing with bulldozers.
Can you blame the guy? You can. In fact, you should, perhaps. Another, I think, very important point in the timeline is that in 2016, Ariana gets the haircut, a bob, a fab, in fact. It is such a fab. She looks great. She looks fantastic. All right, so this is a speed round of all the other people on the show who I'm going to mention, and you just kind of need to know who they are. So we have Sheena Shea, aka Pizza Girl from the Jonas Brothers thing. I saw someone on TikTok say this, and I'm so mad that I didn't come up with it myself and that I don't remember who said it. But they said that Sheena is all of us if we let the thoughts win. And I mean that in the fact that Sheena does think that she is the main character in every situation, but she also has no sort of actual perception of what's going on around her. Her boyfriends just don't like to say I love you or give her flowers or kiss her. And she doesn't even like when they kiss her or give her flowers. Why would she want that? And also another important quality about Sheena that you just need to know is that someone could, I feel spit in Sheena's face, and about a week later, she would forgive them. She tries to be friends with everybody, even when these people are absolutely in the wrong and don't deserve her friendship at that point. It gets to the point where she is loyal to everyone, so she's loyal to no one. You know what I mean? Now, Tom Schwartz, the other Tom in the situation, he's married to Katie Maloney, who is also one of Ariana's friends. And he also has a really uniquely codependent relationship with Tom Sandoval.
Leave him the alone! He's a battered wife! Look at him!
Heterosexuality really is a prison, I think specifically for these two, because they would be the most beautiful couple if they were into it, but they're just not into it. There's this clip of Violet Chachki on the pit stop that to me just perfectly encapsulates who Tom Schwartz is.
And finally, last one, we have Utica in this white poodle look.
I don't really like it. You don't have to be every second.
He is incapable of being serious to the point where he's not a real person, but he is unfortunately really handsome and charming, and I feel like he'd be really nice in person. And I get why people fall for him. I get why Katie was with this man for so many years, because I think it would work on me, to be quite honest. Lala Kent and James Kennedy, they hook up briefly, but they never date on the show. And that to me makes no sense because their chemistry together is just kind of insane. Lala, for most of the time that she's on the show, is dating this guy named Randall Emmett, who has since been revealed to kind of be a smaller version of Harvey Weinstein in all of the worst possible ways. He's a slimy sort of casting couch kind of guy who harasses and doesn't pay his employees, allegedly, who publicly cheats on Lala. And at one point, Lala does allege that he threw her to the ground to try and get his phone away from her. But it's not a but for me, but it's a but for other people. Lala Kent, when they first started dating, she was like this 24-year-old who was dating, this guy. So people were like, well, you were clearly just with him for the bag. And also, he told Lala that he was separated, but obviously he was not separated. Lala was the other woman. Should we really feel bad for Lala that she had a child with this man who turned out to be horrifically abusive and was much older than her, and also met her when she was struggling with alcoholism, and now that she's 5 years sober, she feels very differently about him? It's not really talked about on the show, I think because of legal disputes that Lala and Randall were having at the time. Say what you will about how Lala engages with other people on this show, she was absolutely done dirty with the depiction of her and Randall's relationship on that show. Finally, we have Rachel, aka Raquelle Leviss. Now, when she's introduced on the show and throughout her entire time on the show, she goes by the name Raquelle. I knew that Tom had an affair, but I heard it was with a woman named Rachel. So the whole time, I was just waiting for a woman named Rachel to be on the show, not knowing it was actually Raquelle. Her name is Rachel. Raquelle is a nickname. After the affair gets uncovered, everyone started calling her Rachel just to be petty. And since that time, Rachel has sort of reclaimed the name Rachel. And so then people started calling her Raquelle to be petty in that way. I'm just going to call her Rachel because I just call people what they want to be called. There are so many other things to say about Rachel besides her having a nickname. It's just so unimportant to me, but I digress. Rachel first gets introduced as James's girlfriend. Immediately what you notice about her is that she has these very big Bambi eyes, and she's also someone who smiles when she's nervous or uncomfortable. And she's nervous or uncomfortable pretty much anytime she's on camera. She met James when he was DJing one night, I believe at Sir. People, I think Katie Maloney is one of them, but a lot of people think that she was a fan of the show, that she purposely went to Sir to meet James so that they could date and so that she could be on the show, which honestly I feel like is possible. I could see that being the case. What's interesting is that she is so nervous, and she is someone who is just, you either have it or you don't when it comes to reality TV, and honestly it's probably better that you don't. She just does not have like a reality TV personality. As I mentioned, Lala and James had this twin flame energy. They never dated, but they did absolutely flirt with each other all the time. Rachel and Lala never got along. One day while Rachel is at work and Lala's at work, because they both pretend to work at Sir, Rachel is on her break and she's having Sir pasta. Lala comes in and she just eats Rachel's pasta. Who eats another person's pasta? I don't know. This ends up being one of the most iconic blow-ups, one of the most iconic quotes of the show. And I hate that it came from James Kennedy.
I told you that I ate Raquelle's pasta, and that's how you come for me?
So read between the lines. It ain't about the pasta. It's not about the pasta.
It's not about the pasta. Some people think that pasta is a euphemism for Coca-Cola. I don't really see how that metaphor tracks, but up to interpretation, I suppose. Her only real plot line before the end of season 9 to season 10 of Vanderpump is she has a puppy shower. She has a puppy party. They play games like toss the poop bags, which I think she said she actually put dried pieces of Graham's poop in the poop bags for them to toss. And no one wants to go to her puppy party. It'll be like 3 years later, and because she's had nothing else go on the show, she'll be like, I'm still thinking about how Katie Maloney didn't go to my puppy party. She had nothing to work with, and I was honestly very surprised that she stayed on the show after her and James broke up. But as I also said, James Kennedy, in my opinion, a horrible person. And in my opinion, I think he was at a minimum on camera verbally and emotionally abusive to Rachel. There's one incident on the show where Rachel is out with her friends, and so he just starts rage texting her, calling her a whore, a slut, a piece of shit, all of this horrific stuff, just because she didn't answer her phone. Their relationship is terrible. Any criticisms you will have for Rachel, which are valid, like that fact just can't be ignored. James was terrible to her on the TV show, which again makes you wonder what things were like off camera. Our next key point in the timeline, Raquelle gets her own FAB. And honestly, it looks great. Then James proposes to Raquelle at not Coachella, not Archella, it's Raychella. And notably, Tom Sandoval is the one who helps him set all of this up. And he doesn't just help him set it up or plan it. Sandoval pays $25,000 for all the different vendors and stuff they've set up for James's proposal. Rachel's family, when they're on the show, very visibly hate James, and it's implied that they had some sort of severe altercation off the show. A lot of castmates have since said off camera that Rachel's parents made it pretty clear that they were never actually going to let Raquelle marry James, and they didn't think this relationship was good. Unclear if that's actually true. Then things get interesting. So Raquelle and Tom are seen at a bunch of different events, and the whole cast is there, by the way. It's not just these two. I put up some examples behind me. They are weirdly intimate. No, it's one of those things, again, where you probably wouldn't really take that much stock in this if you didn't know what has happened, but knowing what's going to happen, it is interesting. Also in October of 2021, Raquelle breaks up with James the day before the reunion, so they announce it right at the start of the reunion. Raquelle alludes to James doing something unforgivable. It's never specified. Me, conspiratorially, I wonder if Bravo asked her or required her not to speak on what happened. Just, again, given what I know about James, but we know nothing for sure. All we know is that they broke up. And Tom and Ariana at the reunion are like gagged by this. I've included Sandoval's reaction to this because Tom and Ariana were just hanging out with Raquelle and James a couple days before at Disneyland, and Tom and Ariana supposedly had no idea what was happening. Ariana also announces that she has gone through the very lengthy process of freezing her eggs. Now, Ariana consistently throughout the show said that she was not interested in getting married. She doesn't believe in the formal government process of marriage. And she also very publicly and consistently did not want children. Tom, however, did really want to have children at some point. And this was a big source of contention, obviously, in their relationship. Ariana says that she hadn't necessarily changed her mind about having children at that point, but she wanted her and Tom to have that possibility. And I wish there was a less awkward way to say it, but apparently, if the eggs are fertilized by Tom's sperm and then frozen, they have a better chance of being viable for a pregnancy in the future. Ariana on the reunion is like, Tom, like, I've been pushing you to go do this. And Tom's like, yeah, well, I didn't remember you asking me that. He hasn't had time to go through this process, even though initially people thought that he was the one who was more interested in having children than Ariana was. So it's interesting. Now it's not an Archella, it's Coachella in April of 2022. And this is the first Coachella since the pandemic. So you know Miss Vanessa Hudgens was camped out first in line onto that field. James is with his new girlfriend, Allie. And spoiler alert, I love Allie. She is really into reading people's birth charts. And you can actually book a session for her to read your birth chart to you. It's over $300, so I couldn't justify doing that for this video. But I am really tempted because I do trust her wisdom. She's too cool for James Kennedy. That's her only flaw, is I just don't see what she would see in James Kennedy, quite honestly. Also at Coachella is Raquelle. And there's this rumor going around, because Raquelle is single at this point, that she made out with Tom Schwartz because Tom Schwartz and Katie Maloney are now divorced at this point. But Tom Schwartz wasn't at Coachella. And there is this sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy that someone saw Raquelle making out with Tom Sandoval and got the Toms confused. I really don't think that this is true because I just don't know anybody who knows enough about Vanderpump to recognize Raquelle and Tom Sandoval, but not know the difference between Sandoval and Schwartz. Raquelle says that she just made out with some other guy who's just completely not relevant to the story. Who knows? But as I've pictured here, they are posting together in these, she's got the fuck ass bob, she's got the fuck ass hat to go with it. And Tom is really giving the energy of that guy at your local Chili's who buys a round of drinks for the sorority girls across the room. He will stare at them the whole time and they will uncomfortably drink those skinny margaritas. Another person who is hanging out with this friend group who all went to Coachella together is Nima. Nima is some sort of Bravo adjacent guy. I forget what other shows he's connected to. Nima and Rachel were just sort of casually seeing each other during this time. They just went on a couple of dates. Get ready for the triple hearsay here. So Nima told Sheena that Rachel told him that Tom told Rachel that him and Ariana were in an open relationship. Tom and Rachel to this day deny that this ever happened, but Nima maintains that Rachel sort of thought that Tom was making a pass at her at this point. And according to Nima, Rachel said, "I would never hook up with Sandoval, but I would hook up with Ariana." The layers are already starting to form. It's like a crepe cake at this point. All right, June of 2022. So another thing about Rachel is she is a pageant girl. And this is her last time to compete in Miss California before they retire her to the ranch, as I've written here, because she is the decrepit, ancient, 1 foot in the grave. I will be this age in about a month when I'm posting this, I think, 27. And Rachel very tearfully explains in one of her interviews on the show later that this is because of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump declared that by the time you're 28, you're too old to be Miss California. Easily one of the greatest injustices that man has inflicted on our country. Ariana and Tom go out to support Rachel. As you can see from all of these various Instagram stories where Rachel is surfing on a fake surfboard. We love that for her. Can't believe she didn't get the win with that. There is, however, this one interesting video. So Tom is recording Rachel as she's doing her little walk down the runway or whatever. Tom makes an interesting comment in it. Yeah. July of 2022, season 10 of Vanderpump Rules begins filming. And there's a lot of things that have changed at this point on the show. Katie and Tom Schwartz have divorced at this point. Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz are trying to open this dive bar lounge thing called Schwartz and Sandy's. They are just, two guys with a dream and some sort of in-house specialty made ketchup. And as far as Schwartz and Katie are, they're trying to be friends post-divorce because they have to film the show together. Katie's one real boundary with Schwartz is she says, "Please don't hook up with any of my friends." And I think what she really means is please don't hook up with people on the show and make this like a spectacle. Don't make our divorce a messy plotline on the show. And I think it's important to know that at season 10 of Vanderpump Rules, the show was in a very weird place. I believe it's been confirmed that this was going to be the last season of the show if it had not been for Scandoval, because the last couple seasons of the show were bad. They just were not fun to watch. They tried to add a bunch of new people who were not interesting whatsoever. But it's also kind of strange because at this point, 6 main cast members have been fired from the show because of past racist behavior, social media posts. We don't really need to get into it for the story, but you can look it up yourself. It's bad. And one of those people who was fired was Kristen. This is just speculation on my part, but I personally think that Rachel would not have been a full-time cast member at this point if it had not been the fact that so many fan favorites were now permanently off the show. In early season 10, Rachel is crashing out. In fact, the thing that she really gets emotional about multiple times on the show is the fact that she's aged out of pageants and seems to no longer know what her purpose is without a sash across her waist anymore. She's also dealing with the fact that James now has this perfect relationship that he's flaunting around, saying that she's the love of his life. In the grand scheme of things, pretty shortly after their engagement got broken off. Rachel is not in a great place. I mentioned earlier there was this rumor that Schwartz and Rachel made out at Coachella. Tom Schwartz and Rachel kind of take that rumor and they're like, wouldn't it be so crazy if we made out a little bit? I don't know, maybe. Katie would be really pissed at me, but what if we made out a little bit? Rachel, when asked if it's maybe a little insensitive to Katie, who she's trying to be friends with at this point, is like, well, I'm not a people pleaser anymore, okay? I just want to make out with your ex-husband. And it kind of seems like Rachel doesn't really understand the gravity of breaking off a marriage. Schwartz and Katie were married for 8 or 9 years, and they're still in the process of settling their divorce. They're not even formally divorced yet, I don't even think at this point. These two just love to flirt in front of Katie and make her uncomfortable. It's their new hobby. Rachel at one point just straight up asks Tom, what if we made out right now? Wouldn't that be so crazy? Schwartz, I'll give him this one little thing. He's like, no, I think Katie would really, really hate if I did that. Rachel tells Katie, she's like, okay, so I did ask him to make out with me, but we didn't make out. So you can't be mad at me, Katie. And everyone's like, well, Rachel, you guys didn't make out because Tom Schwartz said no. It's not because you had some sort of moral realization that would have been hurtful to her. But at this point, Rachel and Katie are still trying to be friends. They're not really friends, but I feel like they have to hang out for the show. They're trying to make it work. It would not be a Bravo show without a contractually obligated girls trip. And the girlies are celebrating Katie's divorce and going to Vegas. And Rachel gets invited despite telling Katie that she wants to make out with her ex-husband. This doesn't just go away. They bring Katie's mom to the restaurant they're at in Vegas, and Katie's mom starts crying to Rachel's face and basically begging Rachel not to go after Schwartz. Kind of insane, to be honest. Feels like one of those things that probably shouldn't have made it to air. Also, notably, the waiter at this restaurant is this guy named Oliver, who he's like the son of somebody on another Bravo show. I have no idea who this man is, but he's somewhat famous as well. Lala is like, oh my gosh, this man is hot. This man is handsome. Rachel is like, oh yeah, he is totally hot. He is totally handsome. Rachel and Lala are both flirting with this man all night. At one point, Rachel goes up to Lala and she's like, Lala, I know you're also into this guy, but would it be okay if I went after him? And Lala's like, yeah, go make out with him. What do I care? I don't care at all. But then Rachel has the nerve to actually go and make out with him? Now, when Lala said it was okay, she obviously didn't mean it like that. Rachel is blackout drunk at this point, and she's like, well, Lala, weren't you a mistress when I first met you? Kind of odd for you to be criticizing how I would act when I'm single. Oliver says he's single. He's actually not single, but Rachel doesn't know that, so it's not her fault. Isn't it kind of odd for you to be criticizing me like that? Lala says, well, I'm glad I don't have a man, because to be honest, I wouldn't trust you around him, Rachel. To which Rachel says, well, it's a good thing you don't have a man anyways. This line is really only interesting because you know the affair is coming. I feel like otherwise, Lala is just being kind of silly crazy.
The fact that I'm facing Lala Kent, I'm loving this new version of me.
Rachel goes off to dance in her own hotel room with her leftovers. She has brought these portable galaxy lights, which, may I just say, is so Tom Sandoval coded. A Philips Hue smart bulb hates to see that man coming. All the other girlies on this trip start making fun of Rachel's little galaxy lights behind Rachel's back, and Rachel overhears them and cries herself to sleep. When they're in the car going to the next lake house or whatever they're staying at, Rachel has full-on panic attack. And the girls are really helpful to her in that moment, but none of them really like Rachel. Also, you may be wondering, where's Ariana in this contractually obligated girls trip? Actually, as soon as they got there, Ariana got a call that her elderly dog, Charlotte, was having seizures and she probably wasn't going to make it. And so she ends up leaving the trip, and her and Sandoval end up having to put Charlotte down. And this is a really emotional time for Ariana because she's had this dog basically her entire adult life. Charlotte was also the dog who was with her when her own father passed away. This dog has just been with Ariana through all of the life stages, and it's just really sad. Obviously, it's really sad when a dog dies. But here is where things take a turn. Rachel and one of the other girls on the show, Charlie, decide that they're leaving the girls' trip. Before they go, they tell Katie, we're actually going to go hang out with Schwartz at the boys' night. And you know who else is going to be there? Tom Sandoval is going to be there, and he is very excited, as pictured here, to see Rachel walk through the door. Rachel starts complaining to Sandoval. None of the women get her. None of the women support her, wanting to make out with Tom Schwartz in front of Katie Maloney. No one is on her side. Off screen, off camera, not this night, but some night shortly after this, Tom Sandoval invites Rachel to hang out in his backyard. They hang out in the hot tub. They talk all night. And then they hook up in one of their cars outside. Sandoval ends up accidentally locking himself out of his own house. So he knocks on the door early in the morning, and Ariana has to be the one to let him back in. No one has any idea that this is happening besides Tom and Rachel. Allie, the horoscope girly, walks into the gay club, and who does she see but Rachel and Tom Sandoval in their wheelchair, alone at 1 a.m. Later, when they're talking about this, Sandoval is like, oh my gosh, yeah, we were at the Abbey. We were with you, Allie. Obviously, you don't remember that we were with you actually the whole time. We were with you and your boyfriend, James Kennedy. Allie is like, I mean, no, like you just weren't. You just weren't with us. We saw you there alone. In his confessional, the producers ask Tom Sandoval if anything physical is going on between Rachel and him. And he gives the least convincing answer you've ever seen.
Nothing has happened between Raquelle and I. Like, nothing. Like, that wouldn't happen between, you know, like, me and Katie.
His answer is so bad to this question, it kind of makes you think, oh, production knew this whole time that this affair was going on. They just didn't tell anybody, right? Like, surely. Also, a little bonus detail, when Rachel is talking to James, she asks James if he's going to the pool party at Tom Sandoval's house. Not Tom and Ariana's house, Tom's house. Off screen around this time, Tom and Ariana start going to couples therapy to work on their relationship. But importantly, Sandoval does not tell Ariana about any sort of affair during this therapy. Okay, it is Scheana's second televised wedding on Vanderpump Rules, and very sadly, she did not wear a crop top wedding dress this time. She just wore, I mean, it's gorgeous. She looks great. Scheana and Brock are having this wedding at a resort in Mexico. Katie is uninvited from this wedding because Scheana really wants Rachel and Schwartz to hook up. And like I said earlier, Katie's like, that makes me uncomfortable. And Scheana's like, well, f you, Katie. I'm uninviting you from this wedding because I want your ex-husband to make out with my friend. But because this is a reality show and they need to make drama, Katie is going to the resort where the wedding is anyways. And she's not at any of the events, but she's always literally right around the corner from it. She might as well have gone to the wedding. Rachel is a bridesmaid at this wedding, and she's staying with one of her and Scheana's friends who's not on the show. That friend paid for their shared hotel room, but Rachel tells this friend that actually, you can't stay in my room. No, yeah, actually production is telling me that I need to be in a room by myself. And we can't even pretend that I'm by myself and you're staying overnight. Like, no, you have to not be in here, babes. Because secretly, her and Tom Sandoval are hooking up this entire trip. I've included a clip here, which is in the trailer of the show, but this is Sandoval appearing to grab Rachel's butt right in front of Ariana at the pre-wedding white party. Not sure whether to make a Midsummer reference or an Arbonne reference, but also at this white party, Bravo sets up this clearly staged table out in the middle of the water, surrounded by literally everyone, including Katie, who is just wearing black, thematic, outside of this white party. Schwartz and Rachel have the driest, most uncomfortable makeout session at this table in front of everybody. Eventually, they go off to a different area where they continue to make out. It does not look anymore like they have chemistry the second time they do it. Rachel says that Sandoval actually comes over and brings them both beers while they're doing their makeout.
I told him about my breakup and my relationship with James, and I said it's been a blessing to have no contact with him. We were just talking about that, and then I was like, I kind of want to make out with you again, you know, because I'm like, yeah, we're filming this show. Like, this is what the producers want. And so I went in for that kiss. And of course, here comes, like, there's this noise in the background, and I turn around and it's Sandoval army crawling over to us. And then he cracks open 2 beers and he's like, here you guys. Here you go. And then he's like, see ya. And so we're like, okay, cheers. Like, you know, so I know that he was in on it and definitely okay with it.
Now, Schwartz supposedly doesn't know what's happening between Rachel and Sandoval. Sandoval and Rachel, though, do. It kind of seems like at least the two of them are arranging this relationship between her and Schwartz specifically so that it can distract from what's going on between them. I personally find it hard to believe that Schwartz wouldn't also know at this point. Him and Sandoval do have the kind of relationship where they would make out with the same girl just to protect one of their relationships. Their relationship really is like the worst parts of Challengers with no Zendaya in it, you know? In September of 2022, a bunch of the cast members go to a Labor Day party out in Orange County. Ariana isn't invited to this pool party because Tom told people that she wouldn't want to go. So he actually goes with Jax Taylor, the guy who was fired for, you know, all those racist things that he did in the past. Ariana, while everyone is at this Labor Day party, gets a call that her grandmother has passed away. Family are all in Florida, so Ariana is just all alone at this house. Ariana calls Tom and asks him to come home because obviously she asks him to come home. He doesn't. He later said that he wasn't able to get an Uber out of Orange County. Obviously not true. A bunch of people, including Lala, later tried to tell Ariana that people were offering to give him rides and he was purposely saying no. And of course, someone else is at this party as well. In September of 2022, this is sort of the end of filming of season 10. By this point, Lala and Allie sort of suspect that Sandoval has a thing for Rachel. They have no proof that there's an affair going on here, but they suspect that something's going on. And there are all these rumors going around that Tom and Ariana are in an open relationship. Sheena tells Tom about these rumors and he's like, "What? No, that's so crazy. No, we are in a closed monogamous relationship. It would actually be very unethical if I got caught cheating in this very monogamous relationship that we have right here." Ariana goes out to Florida for her grandmother's funeral. Because of the hurricanes that are happening at that time, she ends up staying for a few weeks. Tom, and Rachel all have a hot tub hangout at Sandoval and Ariana's home. Rachel, the next day, shows up late for work, and when Lisa Vanderpump is like, "No, why the f are you late?" Rachel just tells her that she spent the night at Sandoval's house. So then, husband of Lisa Vanderpump, Ken Todd, comes in to be messy and immediately fly away.
I can't believe that Tom Sandoval had Raquelle over when Ariana's away.
I know.
In the jacuzzi as well.
What?
I can't believe that Tom Sandoval had Rachel there when Ariana was away and in the hot tub as well. That was a really good impression. Sandoval, when Lisa calls and asked about this, he's like, "Oh yeah, Rachel dipped out. She dipped out." Lisa's like, "No, Rachel told me that she spent the night." And Sandoval's like, oh yeah, she dipped out. She dipped out to my room? No, not my bedroom. My guest room? My couch? She dipped out. She did spend the night, but she dipped out. Once Ariana comes back from this trip, everyone is rightfully very concerned for her that Tom Sandoval got caught lying about Rachel hanging out and sleeping over at their place. Ariana is like, "Rachel's my friend. She's the sweetest, loveliest person. I would never accuse her of anything. Tom is my partner. He's loyal to me. I trust both of these people. Nothing is wrong." And she actually gets very upset when people start accusing them.
She's one of my closest friends, and I not only trust and love her, but I trust and love my boyfriend.
I know, especially when I'm putting all of these things into a condensed timeline, it can feel painfully obvious. And you might want to say, "Ariana, how did you not know what was going on here?" But it's one of those situations where you never want to believe that the worst thing that could happen is happening. It's normal to trust your partner and your friend that they're not actively lying to you and actively trying to hurt you. Behind the scenes, Sandoval has an explanation for everything. So does Rachel. Ariana is just very deep in this relationship and she kind of can't see how bad things look from the outside. "And you glamped at my birthday dinner." It is Rachel's, I believe, 29th birthday here, and she has invited all of her closest friends, Sheena's husband Brock, Tom Schwartz, Tom Sandoval, and Ariana. And yes, Rachel is still crying about how she's not in pageants anymore. Ariana is comforting her about that fact. Specifically, Rachel says, "I've always been the good girl, but now that I've aged out of pageants, I don't have to worry so much about my reputation. So honestly, I feel like I'm kind of making up for lost time right now." And that she certainly is. Also, at this dinner, Tom Schwartz makes a very interesting joke in front of the whole group. He says that Miss Rachel, she has a type. Who? Men that are taken. And I just want to take this time to look in at Sandoval and Rachel's reactions to this joke. If you were still wondering whether Tom Schwartz was in the dark about this, he knew by this point, obviously. After we see this trip, we see Rachel buy a $700 lightning bolt necklace. Maybe she's just really into Harry Potter or electricity or Tom Sandoval. Because Tom Sandoval has kind of made lightning bolts his brand. His restaurant he co-owns with Lisa Vanderpump and Tom Schwartz. There's no lightning bolts in that restaurant, I don't think. There are not lightning bolts in the logo on the front of the building, but for some reason for the Tom Tom merch, they all have this lightning bolt in here. Brand cohesiveness has never really been why you go to Tom Tom's, but anyways, Tom has also sort of made lightning bolts part of his brand for his cover band, Tom and the Most Extras, which he is about to tour across the country with his cover band. They both are wearing these lightning bolt necklaces, and you'll notice when they go to Life is Beautiful, another music festival in September of 2022, Raquelle uses the lightning bolt emoji in her post. And as you can see, they're very friendly, very friendly. This scene is easily the most diabolical out of this whole affair. Raquelle asks Ariana how her relationship with Tom is. Ariana's like, yeah, I mean, I love Sandoval. He's great. I think he's hot. I think he's so attractive. You know, sometimes we have intimacy issues, but we've been together for so long, like it's normal. Raquelle is like, well, I just feel like you guys should want to have sex, you know? You should want to have sex. Strange. I think the only real explanation for this conversation that isn't just straight up sociopathic is I think Sandoval was telling Raquelle the same thing he told Ariana when he was cheating on Kristen with Ariana. I think he was telling Raquelle that him and Ariana were just for show, that they weren't in a real relationship, that they weren't intimate. Raquelle, under the guise of like being a nice, helpful friend, was trying to suss out whether they were still intimate and whether Ariana and him did still have a relationship. Doesn't make this conversation better, I'll tell you that. But then we reignite the whole Raquelle making out with Schwartz thing with Katie, because again, most people on this cast think that Schwartz and Raquelle are a thing, not Sandoval and Raquelle. Tom jumps right in there because he is ready to yell at a woman. Meanwhile, Ariana is crying in the corner because Katie is not only Ariana's really good friend, she's now Ariana's business partner. And so Sandoval, her life partner, her romantic partner, is now yelling at her close friend slash business partner about another one of her close friends, Raquelle. Tom Sandoval does not notice even for a second that Ariana is crying in the corner. He is locked in. Finally, Tom and Tom go to the doctor to get Sandoval's sperm checked. They're not fertilizing the eggs yet, they're just checking to see if he is fertile. After they go to the doctor's appointment, Tom Schwartz and Sandoval start shit-talking Ariana, which is very unusual because you've never seen this up until this point in the show. But Sandoval is like, I mean, she never gets paper towels. She never gets batteries. She never gets pens. I have to ask my assistant to get all those things. All she does is ask me to watch Love Island with her, and I'm not going to do that. But most importantly, Tom Sandoval feels like Ariana belittles him. She acts like she's smarter than him. She uses words like obtuse. And I mean, is she wrong? Was she wrong? I don't think so. I feel like it's all but confirmed that this was meant to plant the seeds of Tom and Ariana breaking up so that he could be with Raquelle in the next season. It's just funny that these were the worst things that he could come up with when it came to Ariana and their relationship. He could have said anything, true or false, and this is what he said. October 16th of 2022, Raquelle goes to BravoCon, and you'll notice she is wearing a Tom Tom hoodie with no pants on, and we all know that only one diva can truly rock this look. Remember, Tom Tom is Schwartz's and Sandoval's brand with Lisa Vanderpump. Katie sees this and she's like, oh my God, Raquelle is still trying to get my ex-husband. She texts Schwartz, Raquelle is just following you around like a little fangirl. It's weird. Schwartz texts back, trust me, she's not here for me. As filming wraps up, it feels like they get more and more ridiculous and diabolical because they don't have a camera crew following them around to maybe catch them. For Halloween, Tom Sandoval dresses up as Raquelle wearing his hoodie, and Raquelle and Ariana wear matching costumes. This is going to ruin the tour. Tom and the Most Extras are touring the world, tearing it up with their cover band that are all paid to hang out and practice with Tom Sandoval. Raquelle is actually spotted at a couple of these shows as he's touring around. But the thing is, season 10 hasn't aired yet. Raquelle is still very much a side character in the world of Vanderpump, and so no one really notices or thinks that it's important that they see her at these concerts. While all of this is happening, Tom is also allegedly using other people's credit cards to book hotels, flights for Raquelle while he's out on tour. Okay, so this one is really like getting into the Gaylor weeds, I think, when it comes to theorizing. We know the affair happened. This is not the evidence we need to prove it. But people do notice that on November 15th of 2022, this is a picture of Rachel in one of her confessional outfits, so filming for season 10. And she captioned it, "Not sure what to caption this, so here's 3 emojis. A lightning bolt, crystal ball, and purple girl sign." Now, you could say that these last 2 emojis kind of match like the color of her dress that she's wearing here. But the lightning bolt feels especially random. And some people who are real tuned into the Matrix, I think, they deciphered that this could say Tom, lightning bolt representing Tom, Tom's future girl. I do fear once we're using emojis and captions as evidence for anything, we have gone too far, we have fallen, like we're in too deep. You know, this is when you need to go outside, maybe call your mom, read a book. You said you were going to read more books this year and it didn't happen. This is not really serious evidence of anything, but I do think it's fun. During Christmas time of 2022, Rachel goes to New Orleans, which just so happens to be where Tom Sandoval is staying with his family for Christmas, as documented by this picture here, which we don't see this picture until after the affair breaks, but they are getting very bold with their behavior. Tom and Ariana have been in couples therapy at this point for a while. According to Ariana, they have a real breakthrough in January, and it feels like they're stronger than ever. They're physically intimate, they're hanging out together, they have plans for the future. To Ariana, it seems like the couples therapy is like working well. At this point, Tom and Tom go to Big Bear for a boys trip, and Rachel's there. Rachel turns off her location on Find My Friends, which eagle-eyed Sheena notices because she has 68 people on her Find My Friends list and she observes them every day religiously. This is when Sheena starts to suspect that something is going on because Rachel has turned off her location, which she previously never did. And they happen to be spotted by fans out at Big Bear. Tom and Tom are here, and then there's a picture with Rachel here. They're together, but no one in the friend group knows that they're together. Tom and Ariana then go out on Valentine's Day, and according to both Tom and Ariana, this is a very bad date. They're very drunk, they're fighting, and Rachel is there. Rachel is there as well. There's a whole bunch of people here, but Rachel is here. After this Valentine's Day date, Tom and Ariana have a very serious relationship talk where the idea of them breaking up is kind of getting floated around. They agree not to, ultimately, but they're not doing well. They're having serious, deep conversations about what exactly is going on here. On March 1st of 2023, Ariana goes to Tom Tom to watch the Tom Tom perform with Tom in the most extras, Tom Tom to Tom Tom. While Sandoval is performing, his phone falls out of his pocket, and so one of his bandmates gives his phone to Ariana, who is his girlfriend. Ariana says that she really had this, she calls it women's intuition. She opens Tom's phone, which, by the way, they had each other's passwords the entire time. She goes into Tom's phone and she finds a video, a screen recording Tom Sandoval took of him on FaceTime with Rachel, where it is implied that they are both in compromising positions, let's just say. Ariana immediately sends the video to herself for proof. She also sends the video to Rachel alongside the caption, "You are dead to me." Tom and Ariana then start fully having a blowout at Tom Tom and all the way through the Uber ride home. Ariana actually met the Uber driver afterwards, and he was really excited to see her and was really relieved to hear that Ariana was out of this relationship. Also, on March 1st of 2023, season 10, episode 4 of Vanderpump Rules just aired. So the season has barely even started. On the other side of the country, Sheena and Rachel are in New York City filming Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. Sheena gets either a text or a call from Ariana explaining that Rachel and Tom have been having this 7-month affair. Allegedly, Sheena gets very upset. She throws Rachel's phone to the ground, and according to Rachel, she punches her right in the face. On a later phone call with Tom and Ariana, Sheena is very upset about this situation, obviously. And Tom is like, "Sheena, we're not real friends. I don't care about your opinion in this situation." Rachel flies home by herself. She spends a few days by herself, and her family convinces her that she should file a police report and prepared to file a restraining order against Sheena, which she says she was initially against, but she goes through with it regardless. Sheena, the Sherlock Holmes of our generation, maintains to this day that she could not have punched Rachel because her nails are too long to form a fist. If she were to form a fist, her nails would cut into her hands and there are no cut marks, or she would have to place her thumb into her fist, which would have broken it. Sheena does say that she was very upset and that Rachel, at one point in this dispute, tried to get closer to Sheena, and Sheena was like, no, get away from me. And at a minimum, it does seem like Sheena swiped above Rachel's eye and cut her a little bit. Whether that was intentional or not remains to be seen. But because Rachel does end up applying for a temporary restraining order, Sheena and Rachel can no longer be within 100 yards of each other until they go to court. On March 3rd of 2023, 2 days later, Bravo has scrambled together some extra cameras they have from the Real Housewives sets, and they are ready to document this epic breakup confrontation between Ariana and Tom. Now, when I tell you I do not understand how Ariana absolutely decimate Tom the way that she did in her heartbreak, I said it here, Ariana could write Hamlet, but Shakespeare could not write this. I bet you're wondering what Tom is saying in this conversation. Well, Tom is like, but Ariana, we weren't having sex ever. Rachel, I mean, I love Rachel. It wasn't just an affair. We didn't mean to hurt you. Ariana understandably loses it. And she's like, I don't care about Rachel. Stop telling me about your friendship with Rachel. And Tom's like, well, I care. I care about my friendship with Rachel. And I care how you weren't having I care how you weren't having sex with me and Rachel was having sex with me, so I like her more. Not an apology in sight from this man, not a tear to be seen. It is just so crazy to see the switch up because they have been dating for 9 years. And Sandoval doesn't seem even the slightest bit hurt that relationship is over. It's like very strange to see. But Ariana, I think because this was such a shocking and utter betrayal, she's not immediately okay with everything, but because it was so hurtful, she's kind of able to separate herself from that relationship very quickly and, does not have affection for Tom Sandoval anymore. Sheena, for once in her goddamn life, stands up to one of her friends who did something wrong. Sandoval goes over to Sheena, who, like I said before, literally told Sheena to f off, that he didn't care about her at all. Tom explains to Sheena that he cheated on Ariana with a whole other person. And Sheena's like, a random person or someone else? And he's like, well, not a random person, but I don't want to do this to them. I don't want to get into it. Tom starts having the same conversation he had with Ariana with Sheena, where he's like, listen, Ariana was a bitch. I hated her. She sucked. We were going to break up anyways. And Sheena's like, so you could have broken up with her. Why didn't you break up with her? You could have broken up with her instead of cheating on her with our friend. This is really big for Sheena, I'm telling you. Sheena says that she can't be friends with Tom Sandoval anymore. She does go back on this 2 months later, but in the moment when we're seeing this is like groundbreaking that she's cutting him off. Tom and Rachel have a conversation at Rachel's apartment. The vibes of this conversation are strange. First of all, I hate to say it, Tom, a guy after my own heart, he's like, can we turn off this overhead lighting? I only like to see my mistresses in the purple hue of LED lights. When you watch this scene, I feel like it becomes very apparent, one, that Tom and Rachel did have more than just a physical affair, that they were in some sort of relationship, for lack of a better word. But it's also really awkward. It kind of feels like part of the thrill of their relationship was that it was in secret. At one point, Tom says that his family loves Rachel, and Rachel thinks that he's saying that he loves her. And so she says, I love you too. It's very awkward. It's very strange. Tom accidentally calls Rachel Ariana. They're both just kind of awkwardly giggling. Neither of them are really distraught about this whole situation. And finally, we see them toes first, and we would recognize those toes anywhere. They have let Kristen Doute out of the canceled cage, and she is back to support Ariana. It is quite the twist. These two hated each other. Kristen got fired from the show for calling the cops on a black woman for a crime the black woman did not commit, but people are willing to put that aside because they are united together in their hatred for Tom Sandoval. It's nuts. It's nuts. You can't make this up. Not even 3 weeks later, they are all filming the reunion of season 10. It is time for Andy Cohen to monetize this breakup. Ariana, as we can see here, body tea, she looks amazing. And when I tell you, normally at these reunions, everyone is fighting with everybody. Nobody has loyalty. Everybody's screaming at each other. This is the one time where I have seen Lala, Ariana, Katie, Sheena, all on one side. The right side? It is kind of strange because honestly, Ariana is not really the one popping up nearly as much as it is James and Lala screaming at Tom Sandoval, which they were hurt by the situation, obviously not to the extent that Ariana was. People have also criticized Ariana for being kind of mean in this reunion because she at one point says something like, I hope you get by a cheese grater or something like that. Who knows? Not that I'm quoting, I don't know. I have no idea how I would react if my 9-year relationship was broken up by an affair with my friend and then we had to film my feelings about that 3 weeks later. I don't think I would say the nicest things in that situation either. Also, to add to the craziness, Sheena and Rachel, they still have their restraining order. So Sheena, they have to put her in a trailer 100 yards from the studio. And so she is watching the reunion go down like it's a live sporting event, just constant reaction shots. It's so intense. But then when Sheena is on stage and Rachel isn't, Rachel is just kind of vacantly staring at it. Sheena gets a letter from Rachel right at the start saying that Rachel is dropping the restraining order against her, and Sheena starts crying about it, and she's like, Rachel has no idea how much this disrupted my life. This was so hurtful to go through. And Rachel says, well, I guess I should have put an I'm sorry note with the notice saying I'm dropping the restraining order. It feels like Rachel isn't sensing the gravity of this situation. So they bring Rachel out to talk with Tom, and Ariana. It is clear that they have all tried to coach their answers to be the same, but they're not. For example, the original timeline that Schwartz and Sandoval give for when Schwartz knew about the affair, they initially say that he didn't find out until a few weeks before everybody else did. Obviously, that wasn't believable. On the reunion, Schwartz says, well, I found out in about August, which would have been right after the wedding for context. And Sandoval is like, August? No, you found out in January, right? Also, Sandoval and Rachel in this reunion are dead set that they only hooked up once in the summer, didn't hook up again or do any sort of emotional affair, nothing, until January of that year. And by January of that year, they were in love with each other, they had a full-on relationship, and they were going to tell Ariana about this before the reunion, but they just didn't have time to because Ariana saw the thing. Obviously, it's not a very convincing lie. I think Sandoval's thinking in this, because he seems to be the one really sticking to this timeline, is that cheating is bad. Having an affair, especially for so long and so deep, is like another level of bad. So if I just say that I cheated one time and it didn't mean anything, and then the affair didn't start until like 2 months before Ariana found out, maybe that sounds better than what's the truth. But even in that timeline, Ariana is like, but we were intimate in January. That doesn't make sense that you guys started your relationship then because our relationship was going well. And Tom Sandoval says, yeah, with a t-shirt on, it was really hot. It's crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm also just realizing, I forgot to mention, after Rachel and James broke up, Lala told Rachel that her and James did in fact hook up while Rachel and James were together. Rachel gets upset about this quite often, and Lala will be like, I wasn't your best friend. This was 6 years ago, move on. And it's like Rachel literally just found out 2 seconds ago. So that's also happening in this. That is really neither here nor there. But it just feels like Tom and Rachel, neither of them really are coping with the gravity of what they'd done. Both of them seem to be trying to put it on Ariana that she wasn't a good girlfriend to Tom, that she should have noticed earlier. They would have stopped if she had just checked on Find My Friends where they were. Obviously, none of this is Ariana's fault, but that's the vibe. But then Rachel goes back on her own for one final interview. And here's the thing, Rachel has always smiled when she's nervous. And in this interview, she explains that Sandoval made her lie at the reunion about their relationship because he thought that it would look less bad than the truth. And so she starts telling the truth, which is basically this whole timeline I've gone through. And she's smiling and laughing during it. She said that this is because she's nervous. I feel like a lot of commenters, who are also all, of course, behavioral analysts, think that this is her being a sociopath and being very excited by the fact that she's lying. Me, I am not an expert, nor am I in Rachel's head at this point, but it is disconcerting and off to see Rachel talking about these really awful things that she's done, about like hooking up with Sandoval secretly and about how great it was and how much she loved him, with this big smile on her face. And she only starts to cry when the producer asked, well, why did you lie at the reunion? Why didn't you just say all of this stuff? And she said, because it looks really bad to hook up with someone's boyfriend in their own bed, especially while that person is at a funeral. Yeah, it does look pretty bad. This is Rachel's last interview on the show. Whether it seems like she's crying because she's sorry for what she's done or because she's devastated by what's already becoming the public spectacle of this all and how bad she looks in the public, sort of up to individual interpretation. But that is the reunion. Also, as a bonus, people made a lot of merch relating to this scandal. Most of them not Ariana. Sheena, with her podcast Shenanigans, Scandoval went platinum on the Shenanigans podcast. She had tens of episodes, it feels like, dedicated to the scandal. Lala got a cease and desist from Rachel, like right when the scandal broke. And Lala either tweeted or posted an Instagram story or something, and she said, hey, Rachel, if you want to send a legal letter, don't send it to me, send it to my lawyer, send it to Daryl. It's really only vaguely related to the situation, but she really does go hard with the send it to Daryl merch. She also previously had a Bambi-eyed bitch palette with her makeup line. That was a collab with Rachel. She puts that on clearance and sells it out. Bravo, of course, makes their own hideous Scandoval merch. And it's actually still for sale to this day. Now, we're not quite done with the timeline here, but honestly, I'm losing my voice at this point, so I'm going to leave it to Past Ashley to wrap up the rest of the timeline and the larger takeaways of this scandal. As I said at the beginning, Scandoval was huge. Ariana was the people's princess. Although she may have been betrayed and heartbroken on national TV, brands were very ready to stake their claim in this mess. Duracell may have funneled millions of dollars into US elections, but rest assured they are absolutely Team Ariana. And so are Red Robin, Tidy Cats, Lad Trash Bags, Raising Cane's. The Uber Eats ad I'll give them was pretty good though.
I got this Uber One tip for ya. Hot membership, oh yeah, to save on rides and eats. Saving!
Ariana also managed to place third on Dancing with the Stars. Ariana had a run on Broadway in Chicago. Sandoval may not have had time to watch Stupid Love Island, one of his many bad takes, but she got to host one of the best seasons of reality television out there. A lot of her castmates, of course, including Tom, did not appreciate her success. You mean to tell me that she's doing well financially and she's still upset by the affair 3 months after it happened? You can't have both, Ariana. This, unfortunately, became an exhausting plot point in season 11, where everyone the whole season would just be like, Ariana, yeah, you got cheated on, but when we went through our public scandals, we didn't get as rich. So why don't you just forgive Tom so we can all film together and get to season 12, please? But I would also like to point out, even if Ariana was just getting her bag with these brand deals, I mean, no shame in her game, Ariana also now had quite the legal and financial mess to deal with now that she was out of this 9-year relationship where they weren't married. There weren't a lot of contracts or formal documents between them. Ariana and Tom, just a few years earlier, had purchased a $3 million home. Sandoval had also used their shared home as collateral for his absolutely doomed business. After the affair went public, they both ended up staying in the house for about 2 months. This is also depicted on the show as some weird, crazy thing. One, the cast of the show clearly does not hang out with enough gay people. But 2, as I said, their money was now completely caught up in this mess, and Ariana wasn't going to just leave the home that Tom wrecked himself, and he, as usual, was just too stubborn to leave. This whole time on the show, Tom's just like, Ariana, you mean evil woman. She won't even let me buy the house from her. I already got carried by Jojo Siwa on Special Forces. Haven't I suffered enough? Another detail to their shared living situation is that while they lived together, Tom was still communicating with Rachel. They were sending each other packages, including a friendship light, and Rachel notably also sent a postcard with lightning bolts on them. There's a reason Sandoval looks like Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. He's a devious man, but is he also misunderstood? Just a little guy, perhaps? A question Vanderpump Rules Season 11 dared to ask. Even though Scandoval brought Vanderpump Rules live viewership back to peak cable TV numbers, it was also the absolute death knell of the franchise as it existed. What made Vanderpump Rules so fantastic in the beginning is that this really was a group of just 20-something friends who fight, cheat on each other, but ultimately still want to come together as a group. Bravo for sure was also making artificial scenarios for them to all be in the same room even when they couldn't stand each other, but the original cast put up with it because there was still a real history there. Even before season 11, that reality was long gone on Vanderpump Rules. These people were clocking in, clocking out to have their memoirs ghostwritten and drop ship some AliExpress makeup. Ariana wasn't just doing well, she was famous in the mainstream at this point. So when she set a normal boundary of not wanting to film with Tom or have mutual friends with him, the show broke. When this happens on the show, because it has happened in past seasons, the show loves to cast these people setting boundaries as some sort of villain, because we also can never have someone be the hero on the show for too long before we start to tear them down, particularly when it's a successful, scorned woman. Listen, when Sandoval and Rachel had a 7-month affair, that wasn't malicious, but you all criticizing Tom Sandoval, that's the real maliciousness. Don't you think? But I think as much as season 11 wanted to follow the usual formula and give Sandoval a redemption arc, Tom was just incapable of letting that happen. To prove it to you, look no further than his Vile Files interview, accompanied of course by his Bravo handler at the time, Tom Schwartz. Sandoval showed up 45 minutes late to this podcast interview, shades on inside, with a giant framed picture of him posing with a most definitely abused tiger from Thailand. He'll be the first to say, yes, of course he f***ed up. He'd never cheat like that. Again.
What have I learned? To not ever do that again. To not ever be in a 9-year relationship and end it that way. To not ever like cheat that way. Like, dude, I'm never gonna do that.
What do you
That's
mean cheat?
Never gonna happen
What
again.
do you mean cheat that way?
What do you mean? Like,
well, when you say cheat that way, it
like
implies
cheat at all?
it implies that you might cheat a different way.
To have an affair.
But how could you expect him not to cheat when the temptress Rachel walked into his life?
Love Ariana. I do. I really care about her. But like, this person fucking throughout our relationship talked to me like I was down here all the time. I hate to say it, but like, I acted out because I had such low self-worth. And somebody like Raquelle, somebody who's in her 20s, like doing the essentially the whipped cream bikini thing, like to me, like in Varsity Blues, like I couldn't.
Not even a New York Times profile could save him, and they're always ready to be contrarian centrists over there. During his New York Times interview, Sandoval said, "But I witnessed the O.J. Simpson thing, and George Floyd, and all these big things," which is really weird to compare this to that, I think, but do you think in a weird way it's a little bit the same? The New York Times journalist really tried to be generous with what he was saying here, and says, "I think I knew what he meant. He was trying to express the oddity of becoming the symbolic center of a nationwide discussion and a major news story. What he communicated instead was something more honest, which is just how much the experience had made him lose perspective." Tom Sandoval did backtrack and apologize, invoking the unjust murder of a black man in the wake of your own cheating scandal is insane no matter what context. I think it would have been one thing if his original quote was, "There are more important, serious news stories, but my silly little affair is getting all this attention." Even though it's a cliche point, it is speaking to some amount of truth there. But his quote where he references George Floyd isn't juxtaposing himself with George Floyd. It's saying they're the same. So it becomes much harder to defend that quote. Where was Rachel as Tom self-imploded in the public eye? Almost immediately after she filmed her final interview, Rachel checked in at a mental health facility and extended her stay for 2 months. Sandoval kept in contact with her while she was there and actually went sober with her in solidarity. But Sandoval even says it himself. Sandoval put a lot of blame on Rachel for daring to get professional help at this time, when that meant he was the only one facing the public. Rachel also later said that Tom would oftentimes criticize her therapist's advice, say that she was running away from her problems by being there, that he referred to the facility as an assisted living center. According to Rachel, it was at that point that she realized just how much Tom had manipulated her in their relationship. On May 17th of 2023, Tom and Rachel announced that they were officially broken up. Tom was very publicly resentful of that decision on season 11. Rachel initially did negotiate to go back for season 11, but said she would only do it if she got equal pay with Tom and Ariana. Bravo said absolutely not. But honestly, who needs Bravo when you have podcasts? Rachel's first and really only tell-all interview was on Bethany Frankel's podcast. I haven't watched The Real Housewives of New York, so I'm only vaguely aware of Bethany and her skinny girl empire, but this was a pretty frustrating interview to listen to. Bethany hadn't watched Vanderpump prior to this interview. She'd only watched a few brief clips, it seems, and the reunions, so she wasn't exactly interested in pushing back on what Rachel said throughout the interview.
They're on a reality show. It's set in a bar, was what I think. It's fueled by alcohol and partying and multiple affairs. So respectfully, what the hell is the big deal that everyone's talking about? Like, I didn't watch. I just saw online being like, what? This is so gigantic. Like the girl wasn't married, the couple wasn't married, no one had kids. Like, so that was just in the back of my mind, not knowing you, not knowing the show.
I want to be clear, I do think there's room for nuance. Rachel was a reality TV producer's dream. She was lost in life, clearly uncomfortable with the demands of reality TV, and heavily drinking during this time. So she was primed to make all of the bad decisions while a production team assuredly egged her on. Those same qualities probably did appeal to Tom, who saw a younger woman he could control to an extent that he could no longer do with Ariana. I think both things can be true, that Tom was not a very good boyfriend, for lack of a better word, to Rachel, that he was manipulative. That's not to rob Rachel of her agency or say that she's a victim in this situation, when she didn't just make one mistake. This was a continuous affair that she chose to engage in for months on end, particularly when Ariana, her friend, had been nothing but nice to her. While she also has issued many apologies of varying quality, her continued judgment of Ariana and Tom's relationship in this interview and later on does not help her case.
So how much do you think their relationship is real, Tom and Ariana?
I don't know. I know. I would not be involved in this affair, secrecy type of situation if I thought that there was longevity in this relationship between Tom and Ariana. I don't know their situation, but I do know that it really isn't that surprising that they're living together in my eyes, because it's been this way. They haven't been an authentic couple, romantic.
So it doesn't matter. So they're roommates and it doesn't matter. It's not as deep. And so the breakup isn't as deep either. And now seeing that she's doing millions of dollars of deals. So it takes 3 to tango in Scandoval. And how does it honestly feel seeing that she's doing all of these deals and is America's sweetheart?
After the Bethany Frankel interview, Rachel got her own podcast deal, Rachel Goes Rogue.
Well, I've seen every single episode, but it was very hard, especially the earlier episodes. I could see how much pain I was in. And then the later episodes, it was just like so cringy with like the necklace purchase and the talk with Ariana and just the interactions that I would have and me just going AWOL and just putting it all out there without thinking, which was very unlike me.
In between filler episodes where she interviewed Married at First Sight experts, Raquelle would answer all of your questions. She would also watch each episode of season 11 and recap it on the podcast and then discuss the episode with her therapist afterwards. She framed this as part of her healing process, but you cannot convince me that this is productive for her or anyone's mental health at that point. I actually do think that there are some revealing conversations in this podcast, but a lot of it is bogged down by what feels to me like weaponized therapy speak, media training, and just sheer repetition. Raquelle clearly had like a time requirement and an episode requirement to fill, and she really wasn't able to do that when she had said as much as she could on the affair by episode 2 or 3. Beyond what I mentioned earlier about her experience with Tom and her mental health stay, it is, for lack of a better word, spooky how Bravo swept in, according to Raquelle, once Raquelle went to the inpatient facility. As soon as Raquelle checked herself in, there was this big rumor that she was lying about getting mental health treatment for sympathy, and that she was actually just staying at a spa for 2 months, like she's a character on White Lotus. And this wasn't just people on the internet saying this. Cast members were pushing this conspiracy on their podcasts and in interviews. According to Raquelle, Bravo had the paperwork that proved where she was because it had been a part of their season 11 negotiations. Despite allegedly knowing about Rachel's mental health at that point, Andy Cohen still asked Sheena about where she thought Raquelle was on Watch What Happens Live. Also, when Raquelle went to the facility, her mom was in charge of watching her dog, Graham. Graham had a history of resource guarding and aggression prior to this, although she doesn't use those words when she describes it in the podcast. Raquelle claimed that part of the reason Graham acted this way was because when her and James were in a relationship, Graham would hear James's drunken rages when he was a puppy. She also claimed that James would push Graham off the couch when he was sleeping and encourage Graham to play bite him. Although Raquelle does say that she took Graham to agility and social training, Graham's behavior was still a major issue. One day while she's in the facility, Raquelle gets a call from her mom that Graham had bitten her mom's hand to the bone and caused permanent nerve damage. And actually, the vet they spoke to recommended behavioral euthanasia at that point. But Raquelle didn't want to put Graham down and asked her mom to send Graham to a golden doodle rescue. It's not clear whether Rachelle's mom told this rescue about Graham's history of aggression, because Raquelle said that once Graham was at the rescue, he also bit one of the trainers and one of the foster parents' children from the rescue. Then comes Lisa Vanderpump. According to Raquelle, even though Graham's surrender was meant to be completely anonymous, the rescue called Lisa supposedly asking for a donation. But Lisa said, "Well, I'll take little Graham myself, and if he can't be adopted, I'll send him off to my ranch." I don't think Lisa has a ranch, by the way. So then on Instagram, Raquelle sees a fan took a picture of Graham with her ex-boyfriend James filming season 11. Raquelle immediately panicked because she did not believe that James was a safe person to own Graham, both because she implied that James was abusive, but also because of the intense training that Graham would need. So she called Lisa.
I texted her saying, I don't support Graham being with James. He needs to be with an owner who knows how to work with troubled dogs. And I won't go into the specifics of why I don't think James is a worthy dog owner. But this is, like I would not live with myself if I didn't express these concerns and something were to happen. And so she called me and I expressed my thoughts, but her concerns more lied with me coming back to do the show. And she said, "Well, darling, why don't you just come to Villa Rosa and bring me some flowers and explain why you left Sir so abruptly without notice and apologize. And then you can explain your side of the story." And it was like, wait, what? And almost, like it almost got me because I was like, well, I do want to explain my side of the story. Like, this is an important thing. Like, this is my child that's being drawn into this.
I do not by any means think that Rachel was a good pet parent. This whole thing feels like it could have been a preventable situation. But my God, Lisa giving Graham back to Rachel's ex, who she has since said that he is abusive and was abusive to her, all to get more content for the show. That's just so twisted to me.
Also, an aside, I completely forgot that now that James has Graham, he has renamed Graham Hippie. So I would like to formally apologize for using the wrong name for Hippie. And just as far as an update, James was really happy to see Hippie again, said that Hippie had clearly been traumatized, that he was really close with him, and that he got Hippie back into training. So, all I can hope is that Hippie's living a happy, healthy life, even if it is with James. That's kind of all we know there.
Finally, in July of 2024, Rachel sued Tom for eavesdropping, revenge porn, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Rachel is represented by two very familiar lawyers to this channel, and if you're just vaguely familiar with celebrity lawsuits, Mark Garagos, who of course represented Winona Ryder, and Brian Friedman, who most notably now is representing Justin Baldoni. Something that had been forgotten in the fallout of the scandal was how Tom allegedly recorded an intimate video of Rachel without her consent. This video is only vaguely alluded to on Vanderpump, presumably because Bravo did not want to also open themselves up to legal scrutiny. In Rachel's complaint, her attorney alleged that Rachel had confronted Tom about this in the scene we see of them together on the show. That Sandoval initially tried to claim he did have permission from Rachel before eventually apologizing to her on camera, but that later on, Sandoval allegedly went to Bravo and demanded they edit out any mention of him recording Rachel without her consent, which Bravo supposedly agreed to. What she describes in her lawsuit about Tom's secret recording and his alleged cover-up is vile. Recording a person like that, regardless of whether she's a mistress, is never okay in any situation, and it's not defendable. But to complicate things further, Rachel also added Ariana to the complaint because she believes that Ariana sent the video and discussed the details of it with other people. Ariana, of course, denies this, and in her motion to dismiss this lawsuit, she submitted a text message allegedly sent to one of her friends 30 minutes after she sent the video to Ariana herself and to Rachel, saying that Tom had deleted it off of her phone. Ariana's lawyers also had digital forensic analysts submit affidavits stating that the video was not on Ariana's phone. Tom, on the reunion of season 11, said about the lawsuits, "It's one thing for her to come after me, but to come after Ariana, I'm questioning if she has a fucking soul." Then Tom also sued Ariana. In Tom's third-party complaint, he not only alleged that Ariana was liable for any losses Rachel had incurred, but that Ariana had also invaded his own privacy when she accessed FaceTime videos between Leviss and Sandoval without Sandoval's authorization or permission. Yeah. Not even 2 days later, Sandoval dropped the suit against Ariana and said, "My attorney, Matt Garagos, who yes, is the brother of Rachel's attorney, Mark Garagos, whose advice I trusted, called me about the cross-complaint in the lawsuit against myself and Ariana. He assured me that the action was customary and strictly preventative in these types of lawsuits and urged me to agree to it. The words new lawsuit or suing were not articulated to me. How was Tom to know that formally accusing Ariana of invading his privacy and demanding money for that counted as a lawsuit? Neither Tom nor Ariana were able to dismiss Rachel's claims, and the current trial date is set for November of 2025. Of course, the biggest question this whole scandal asks is, why did we care so much? Why was this one Bravo cheating scandal the one that got the attention of Red Robin? Vanderpump Rules started because Sheena had an affair with a married man. Yet the scandal of this affair was honestly on par with the public fallout after Tiger Woods' affair. It's so interesting because I remember in my very old Tiger Woods affair video, I talked about part of what made Tiger Woods' own affair was that he was previously seen as this heroic family man figure. Also because he was a black man with a good reputation, reveling in the downfall of an honest black man's reputation. is kind of an American pastime. Tom Sandoval was not a villain before this by any means, but he did not have the squeaky clean reputation for this to all be so shocking. As I said in my presentation, he cheated on Kristen multiple times in their relationship, once with Ariana. At a really basic level, it is easy to see how any cheating scandal, particularly on a reality show where we have parasocial relationships with these people, can cause a frenzy. I think that's in large part because cheating is just as much a part of our normal lives as it is in the lives of celebrities. There were countless women who experienced on some level what Ariana went through. There will still be plenty more. I think we've all had someone like a Tom or a Rachel in our lives. That's a much easier thing to attach ourselves to than the times that we were the villain in other people's lives. We also watched Ariana open up about past abusive relationships, her struggle with body image, the loss of her dad. Even though to me she was not a particularly likable or mature person when we first saw her with Tom, it really did feel like we saw her grow up into a strong, intelligent woman. She was and still is someone we could connect to outside of the times she blindly defended Tom's abhorrent behavior of the week. She was usually the voice of reason in a sea of chaos that was Vanderpump. There's a reason you can't just watch season 10 of Vanderpump to feel the impact of this scandal. This was the culmination of years. Fans really did grow up with these people, and despite their messy beginning, Tom and Ariana seemingly were the strongest couple on the show. People could look past Sandoval's questionable fashion choices because he really did seem to love and care for Ariana. Unlike when Tom cheated on Kristen with Ariana, Ariana wasn't also off having an affair. Ariana is not the elusive, perfect victim, but it was absolutely a lot easier to rally behind Ariana than it was to rally behind Kristen in 2013. And that rallying also garnered a larger reaction. There's also just so many layers to the situation that go beyond this one relationship between Tom and Ariana. Rachel, a person viewers saw as this sort of quiet, innocent girl, turns out was actually capable of doing something really awful to a person she claimed as a friend. James found out that his friend who planned his engagement had an affair with his ex-fiancé. Schwartz put on a facade of being really into Rachel, knowing how much it would hurt Katie, just to divert attention from his own friend's terrible choices. And in doing so, his huge investment in this restaurant he shared with Sandoval was now on the brink of closure just as it opened. Lala was in this horrific, allegedly abusive relationship, and still in season 10 was being called a mistress by Rachel herself. Even Sheena blindly defended Rachel, considered Tom one of her oldest friends, and they both broke her trust and hurt one of Sheena's best friends, Ariana. Not even the Schwartz and Sandy's employees were safe from the outrage Tom and Rachel's actions caused. Every one of these people was on some level betrayed by what happened. Quite honestly, if Tom and Rachel had immediately groveled, admitted they were wrong, and apologized with no excuses in bold capital letters, I think people would have moved on way faster. The fact that in every interview Tom gave for months afterwards, he couldn't help but ramble about how him and Ariana needed to break up, how they didn't love each other anymore, how she wasn't intimate enough for him, she acted smarter than him. He gave reasons why him and Ariana should have broken up, sure, but none of them were a reason for why he cheated, which every time it sounded like he was trying to make an excuse for just that. But I think what really made this affair blow up is how much it appeals to, for lack of a better word, I would call the true crime brain. Season 10 of Vanderpump was filmed while Rachel and Tom were actively having an affair. The rest of their castmates had no idea. Then the scandal goes public right as season 10 starts airing. Suddenly, you have 15 episodes of content, plus never-before-seen extras, plus 3 reunions, countless podcasts before and after to pick apart for clues to the affair that was happening under everyone's noses.
I think what's weird is everyone trying to make it like you, our friend, are going to secretly do something with one of our guys, like when we're not there.
People noticed that season 10's trailer featured a shot of Sandoval in the hot tub with Rachel and Ariana looking very throupley. The shot of Rachel between Sandoval and Schwartz with a big shit-eating grin on her face takes on an entirely different meaning when you know what these three were up to off camera. And it's made even richer because the entire season, Rachel and Sandoval are defending sweet, innocent Rachel because she could never be a mistress.
Paint the picture that I'm some like home-wrecking whore is just a little bit far-fetched.
Who cares if she makes out with Schwartz? I mean, I'm just as guilty in this, to be clear. I couldn't make a presentation if I wasn't fascinated with the paper trail. I think there's a catharsis in being able to put this whole picture together and see it for what it is when the cast couldn't at the time. It's the illusion of control, the idea that if we were there, we would have noticed right away. And the characters of Tom, Raquelle, Ariana act as conduits for feelings we have in our own lives, even though they're, of course, not just characters we see on the show. They are real people who are all more complicated than heroes and villains. Some people after the affair went public have also said, well, you lose them how you get them. So why even have empathy for Ariana? Ariana and Tom had, at minimum, an emotional affair for months before Tom and Kristen broke up. When Kristen insisted that something physical happened between them, Ariana lied to her face, only to admit that, yeah, 3 years ago they did make out at the fucking Golden Nugget, because Tom, at the time, had told Ariana that him and Kristen had broken up. Ariana also admitted after the fact that Tom would coach her on some of her responses on the reunion or just on camera. She said that Tom did admit to cheating on her with Miami Girl, and so she already knew when Miami Girl went on camera, so that's why she didn't react. Is it that surprising that a guy who cheated on his last partner and lied about it with you would then go on to cheat again? Probably not, especially if you just juxtapose those two events. But of course, it looks different when these two events are placed 9 years apart. I also think that this take oversimplifies the issue and sometimes reads as just another way to blame women for men who cheat, men who are manipulative. Years before Scandoval broke, Ariana apologized to Kristen, admitted that she had been unfair to her in the past. They actually were friends in spite of everything they went through. From what people see in public, Ariana had grown up and assumed that her partner had also grown. Kristen repeatedly said after the scandal went public that Ariana did not deserve what happened to her. And if anyone has a right to say that Ariana doesn't deserve sympathy in that moment, it would absolutely be Kristen Doty. It's now been over 2 years since Scandoval broke, and people like pop culture scholar Chrissy Teigen have dared to ask the question, was the public too hard on Tom and Rachel? I don't really see this as a yes or no answer because there are so many layers to the public reaction. First, goes without saying, anyone directing death threats, any sort of harassment to any of these people are losers. And I do think there's something to be said about not needing every single podcast episode with every minuscule detail. Like, why do we need to bring Rachel's ex, who she saw for a month, onto Sheena's podcast to talk about their very brief relationship? Was that necessary? No. And was it necessary for all of us to listen to it? Also, probably no. I do think, however, that these people being on a Bravo reality show in particular paints the criticism in a different light, even than normal celebrities. I mean, part of the premise with any Bravo show, including Vanderpump, is opening up these people's lives to public opinion in a way we would not normally expect. I mean, watch What Happens Live. The entire format of that show is the public and Andy Cohen asking the shadiest and most personal questions they can think of. With that sacrifice of privacy, there is a benefit to that. Even though the Vanderpump cast pretended to clock in for years, after the first couple seasons, the cast was raking in thousands of dollars from their show appearances, the brands they started, the book deals they got. It's how Tom went from a rent-controlled apartment where you couldn't have the AC and the microwave running to a $2 million home in the Valley. But of course, there's a trade-off with that. There is criticism, which I think at times does cross the line into far too personal, a release of privacy. And it's also an odd juxtaposition because to a degree, the more bad behavior, the more public fights, messy breakups, the more you are rewarded by Bravo, by viewers. Maybe not with praise, but certainly with money and attention. It's weird to say because again, these are real people. Cheating is a staple of this show. But there's a reason Tom in particular was so insistent on covering up this affair, downplaying the timeline, coaching Rachel and Schwartz to give agreed upon answers. It's because he knew the truth of the situation went far beyond the typical cheating scandals the show had come to expect. He knew on some level that his actions and Rachel's actions would get public backlash, and that would all certainly hurt Ariana, which neither of them cared enough to tell her themselves. I think to carry this affair out with all three people involved being such public figures, not expecting a strong public reaction was naive at best and egotistical at worst. But that was then. Do Tom and Rachel deserve a redemption arc now? That was the surprising question posed by season 3 of Traitors US. When it was announced that Sandoval would appear on the show, a lot of people were annoyed at his inclusion. And in the first few episodes, I thought to myself, oh yeah, these editors are absolutely team Ariana. Every chance to make Tom Sandoval look like a buffoon, the Traitors editing team took. Zoom in on the pit stain, watch him hunch over and shovel food down his throat so fast when there's a table and a chair right behind him. His facial expressions at every round table, Tom was acting like he was genuinely going to be sent to the gallows if he was voted out that night. Or the time Tom tried to say that women are better traitors and he accidentally said women are better cheaters, only for every single woman in that room to immediately stop playing the game and yell at him.
Girls are better cheaters than guys just because they have better social skills.
That came out your mouth?
Oh my God, I said cheater. I said traitors. I said traitors. Sorry.
You said cheater.
Stop.
Everybody vote for Tom.
I didn't know I needed to see Britney Spears' ex-husband and a British aristocrat drag this man until I did.
Don't dig yourself deeper.
But he also put in the effort. He sang those backward lullabies like his 5% stake in Tom Tom was on the line.
Terrible singer.
You hate to admit it, but Tom Sandoval was born for reality TV. He was absolutely born in the right generation. I do just find it fascinating that him hanging out with Alan Cumming one summer was what finally sparked a somewhat serious redemption arc for him. He can say that he's sorry, that he's made bad choices, that he's in therapy now, but the notion that he might have actually improved as a person in those 2 years isn't really what matters to the public. It's the fact that he compared himself to Lord Voldemort because he wanted to show off his riddle skills. Here's the thing. Tom Sandoval, like all of us, contains multitudes. The Tom Sandoval we see on screen certainly has done some bad things, and he is intentionally and unintentionally at times really funny. If nothing else, he makes riveting reality TV content. But then I remember the FaceTime recording, and I'm right back where I started. I don't know if this man should be seen in public or not. It's a contradictory relationship I think Bravo reality fans have in particular, myself now included, where you may absolutely despise how these people treat interpersonal relationships, but without them doing those bad things, what is the show? But there is also a strong difference between just being messy with your relationships and straight up abusive and criminal behavior. For another example, James Kennedy being on the show when his abusive behavior was documented against both Kristen and Rachel, only to culminate in his recent arrest for domestic violence. I, for one, really hope that man stays off our screens. But returning to Tom and Rachel, I don't know any of these people and none of this happened to the public, so it's not really a matter of me forgiving him or the public forgiving him. Of course, I just made an entire presentation rehashing all this, so I'm certainly not the poster child for move on, who cares? Like, I don't have a leg to stand on. This is one of those situations where I don't really know how to feel other than I think some people did some really bad stuff that was documented for our entertainment. And that's a weird world that we live in. And yet I still watch it. To me, this is a fascinating piece of reality television history, but there will always be more drama for public consumption to take its place, because that is the premise of these Bravo shows. Be a fly on the wall, dissect and react to each table flip or beer poured on someone's head without yourself having to deal with the consequences the mess brings, because this isn't your friend group or your life. Vanderpump Rules is coming back for season 12, this time with an entirely new cast. Soon enough, there will be even more famous for being famous characters who we hate at times, empathize with at times, and provide scandals trivial in comparison to the headlines of the day. Thank you all for watching that. I hope you liked it. As usual, if you want to see more from me, I upload monthly bonus videos over on Patreon if you want to support me on there. I'm Also, maybe by the time I'm filming this, getting back to Twitch streaming a couple times a week, so you can check me out over on there. And if you don't want to do any of that, that's cool. That's fine. If you liked this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.